Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. As you can see, Winston is not here. He and Gail are traveling. But my name is Stan Kirkland, and I'll be your host today. And we have one other host that will be on the show with us here momentarily. The weather today, let's jump right into that. It's brought to us by Gulf Coast Air Conditioning and Drew Pollard. Drew's been a supporter of the National Wild Turkey Federation in the past. And Drew, we thank you for that. The high today is 83. It's warming up. Low is 67. We're past those temperatures of last week when it got down to 55 degrees, and with the wind blowing about 18 to 20 out of the north, and it didn't feel like Florida. The humidity is returning, so keep that in mind. The river readings are brought to us by Mountain Dew on the Outdoors. The Apalachicola River at Bluntstown is 9 feet, should be falling a little bit. The Choctawhatchee River, I'll get it out, Choctawhatchee River at Careville is about 10 feet. It's still a little high, but these rivers are going to come down though, so count on that. The tides are brought to us today by Kent Forest Lawn Funeral Home. The high tide is at 2:03 p.m., low tide 12:45 a.m. That's about a 1.5 foot tide. So if you're going fishing today, you want to catch a good bite, go a little later this morning if you want to catch that high tide. The high tide in Port St. Joe, 12:48 p.m. That's tonight. Low 1:49 a.m. About a 1.7 foot change. The marine forecast, there's about a 15% chance of rain during the day. So winds out of the southeast about 10 to 15 miles an hour. And the Gulf temperature is right around 75. It may have come up to 76, but the Gulf temperature is still real good. If you like to fish, particularly nearshore waters, we couldn't get any better. May and June are good months to fish. Okay, we're going to take our first break now, and we'll be back with our other guest in just a moment. Well, good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning, sir.
Our guest with us today, another guest with us today. You and I are both filling in. How are you, Ken?
I'm good.
This is Ken Paramore, by the way.
Another day in paradise.
Good to see you. I hear you're going to talk briefly in a minute about, I think you bought a kayak. So.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little kayaking, and we're going to talk about some turkeys and
good deal.
Not turkeys, but turkey season, and then our banquet is coming up, and whatever else we can pull out of our hat this morning.
There you go. Good deal. Well, I wanted to start off talking about something. I think Winston mentioned it on the show last week. I'm not sure, but Winston had a relative to die, pass away. I think he went to the funeral, but the guy's name was Larry Furr. He lived in Gadsden County. And for those of you that like to deer hunt, that name may ring a bell. Larry had killed the largest whitetail deer, rack-wise, that has ever been killed in the state of Florida. And that was killed on open land, that is. It was not killed inside of a high fence. The way I got involved in this deer, and when Winston and I were talking about this deer, I said, oh, I knew Larry, and he was a little surprised that I knew Larry, but back eons ago, when I moved from Pensacola as an officer to Panama City in 1978, it wasn't long after that I heard that we had a scorer that had scored Larry's deer. Now, we did not have an official scoring program at the time. We had no way. We didn't have the Florida Buck Registry. Boone and Crockett had come to Florida. This was in the really early 80s. But Larry's deer, we had actually, it's kind of humorous, we were listed as having 1.5 scores. That one was a guy, the one whole person was a guy named Dave Swindell. Did you ever know Dave? Mm-hmm. Dave was our personnel officer. And when I met Dave, he was probably late 60s, 70s, working with Game and Fish. And Dave worked in the Tallahassee office, older guy, had about 5'8", 5'9", had a crew cut. And one thing I'll never forget about Dave, he always wore shirts and he smoked a pipe. He constantly smoked a pipe. And he would exhale when it was lit as much as he inhaled. And he always had these little burn holes. And I could never look at it, when I was looking at him, it always looked like he'd been shot with number 8s in his chest. He always had these little holes. So anyway, I always had to catch myself. But Dave had scored Larry's deer. And after we started a program here with Boone and Crockett, they actually came down from Montana, I believe it was Missoula, Montana, and started, it was in 1986. And I sat in on the initial class, and they asked me, after I was competent and scored a number of deer, if I would go and look at this deer and make sure, due to its size, it was scored correctly. Ordinarily, we don't do that, because they always, if I got any questions, they go back to the original person who scored it. But I went and looked at it. I got to Larry, and I think he was married at the time, I believe. I didn't meet his wife, but he lived in a trailer in Gaston County, somewhere near Greensboro. And again, we're going back 30-something years. And it was just before Christmas. It was raining. It was at night. I had no opportunity to photograph this deer outside, but I was awestruck. This was a 7x7. It was an incredible deer. I talked to Larry. Larry did not hunt out of state, never had hunted out of state. And a lot of rumors got started that Larry killed this deer here and there, but that was just penny jealousy by people. But Larry killed this deer, he told me, in a soybean field in Gaston County, and it scored 168 and an 8 typical. To look at it, it was incredible. It had long beams on each side, long tines, 7x7. Everything was matched, and so there really was nothing to change. And anyway, it was all done. Even the pencil marks were still on the points where it had been scored. So that's the way I got to know Larry. Fast forward a few years, it was I want to say it was right around 2000. I picked up the local paper one day, the Panama City News Herald, and there was a story in there about a family in Mexico Beach that picked up a dog. And when I read the story, this family had found a beautiful hound. I believe it was a July Walker, and the dog had a collar on him. The collar said Larry Fur and gave his number. And sure enough, they were able to get the dog back to Larry, and I have not had any contact, but his deer is still the #1 buck in the state of Florida, and I think Winston and Gail went to his funeral last week.
Well, Winston did a show at his house,
right,
a few years ago, and I've we've seen the pictures of that deer, and it was incredible.
You're in amazement. Well, it's time for our next break. And then we will be back with Ken and some news about turkeys and other things. Good morning. Welcome back. Ken and I were sitting here talking during the break. What's on your, you were talking about a couple of things, turkey season, kayaks. What's on your mind right now?
Well, turkey season for me is a sore subject.
Okay.
We won't delve into that.
Put my pen down.
We won't delve into that too much, but
okay. But you had a good season. You got to go.
I got to go. I guess that was. Does that make a good season? Oh yeah. Anytime you can go outdoors, it's a good season.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
My luck this year was awful. 14 years in a row I killed at least one bird
Hey,
and a goose egg this year. That's hard to swallow when you go almost 15 years with at least one, and then you have a year with a goose egg after that long. It was like, I was actually online the other day trying to find another state that was still open. If I could get out there and find a guide to take me out, just so I could get one for this year. But
did you ever look up and see if you had a cloud over you?
this year, I had a bunch of clouds.
Oh.
I had a bunch of things that went
Did
wrong.
you hear any birds gobble?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Heard
that's
plenty,
worth it.
Heard plenty of that.
That's
Oh
great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a win.
And I saw a picture of one that you were involved in, or two. So
Yeah, well, we got lucky.
You had a
They
decent
ran out in
year.
front of the car, so, but anyway.
You had a decent year, but anyway, it is what it is. Could have been better, but you know, I hunted a lot, hunted almost every day except windy and rainy days, and
Well, it'll be better next year.
yeah.
Always next year.
But about the NWTF banquet, we have firmed up our date, August 13th.
Correct?
Same time, same location, which is the First United Methodist Church downtown. We haven't got into planning yet, but we are back, hopefully. If things don't crash between now and then, we're going to try to put on, which will be our 6th.
Well, we didn't get to do it last
No,
year
we
because
didn't get to
of
do it
COVID,
last year.
and so we had to. We just didn't. It wasn't going to work.
No, so more to come about that, but the date is firm for now at August 13th.
And we
looking
have a
forward
good
to it.
time. We raffle off some guns, and we have some other stuff there. We have a good meal for people, and it's well worth it. And it's an opportunity to invest in the National Wild Turkey Federation, what they do for turkey, turkeys as a resource, and for hunting,
Habitat.
of course,
Habitat.
and for habitat. It's a great organization. So Ken and I both believe in them. Ken is our chapter president, Bay County Longbeards. I should have said that.
Oh,
And I serve
There
as
will be more to come. We
bean
will.
counter. But anyway,
Hopefully
okay.
we'll have a good packages for raffles and auctions, and
Right.
I recently attended the banquet in Defuniak Springs, and it was a good one after they hadn't had one in over a year too.
Do they still have one in Mariana?
No.
Okay, they're not having one. But anyway, there are some opportunities. But if you will come, bring kids, male or female. The good way to introduce. We have no alcohol, so everything's good and clean, and a lot
We're
of
going to
good fun.
recognize some kids this year
Yes, we are.
that got birds in our contests last year.
Yeah, we had one young man that killed I won't say a moose, but it was a huge bird.
Yeah.
Killed a bird that weighed 21 and a half pounds, but that was during the youth portion, but more about that later. I understand you you're into kayaks now.
Thanks to you.
Hey, don't blame me.
You don't even remember how that started.
Yes, I do. I take my Prevagen every day, so.
I went to Stan's house a while back to talk about turkey banquet stuff. And he's got 2 kayaks in his garage. Looked like brand new kayaks. So we started talking about that. Well, I've been thinking that I wanted to start bass fishing in some of our local lakes and ponds, and maybe some, trout or red fishing without getting into hauling a heavy boat around or getting a trailer for a john boat and all that. So went down to one of our sponsors, saw Brad at Sunjammers. I bought one just like yours. So I went on my first ever kayaking
You
trip.
just walked in there and got it.
No, we didn't have any. You had to wait 6 weeks.
It's amazing the wait time. We had to wait too.
Yep. Anyway, I've never been in a kayak in my life. I caught my first bass in a kayak a few weeks ago. If this wind would quit blowing and it would quit raining, there may be some more in my future. But thanks to you, I'm in the kayak business.
Well, I'm glad to know I'm blamed for that now. But anyway, I don't get a cut out of selling kayaks. So just remember that.
But thanks to Brad, they were very helpful down there. Buy local, and
Yes.
if you can get one, you have to go and kind of get on a waiting list now.
You should wear a life jacket when you go out in your kayak. right?
Yes, I had a little vest type that I
Right.
put on.
Sure.
And that's about it. That and your paddle and maybe an anchor if you don't want to be blown around.
Right. Yep. And they've got great seats for them now.
Yep, the seat's perfect. They're light. You can handle them by yourself. You can throw them in the back of your truck.
That's correct.
You can jump from one pond to the next. So.
And you don't have to leave it there and then worry that it's going to be there when you come back.
True.
Right. You can take
True.
it with you.
Exactly.
All right. We're going to take our next break, and we will be back in just a minute. Well, welcome back to our last segment. We're going to talk a little bit more about kayaks. I was telling you kind of a horror story. You can't be too careful when you're out on the water here. I was talking to one of the officers the other day. I think Dennis Palmer and Keelan
Also Brooks.
I forget his last name. Keelan Alsobrooks, forgive me, Keelan, got called out on a SAR, which is called a search and rescue recently. This was only 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a guy in a kayak that tried to cross the pass at St. Andrews State Park with the tide ripping out. There were 2 of them. They're from out of state. One of them, by chance, made it. The other one, the last time his buddy saw him, his kayak was doing this, going out toward Cuba.
That'd have been my luck. My first time in my kayak.
And they, well, hopefully you're not going to go out to the pass.
No.
But these guys, one of them, the one that made it, that got over on the east side, calls. FWC's notified. I think Dennis and Keelan got out there an hour or so before dark. They didn't know what they're dealing with exactly. There was, I think, 2 to 3 foot seas. And I'm going to tell you something. If you've never been out in the Gulf looking for somebody, if it's one thing to find somebody dead calm, but the Gulf's never dead calm, or almost never dead calm. With those waves like that, it's like a 1 in a million or more chance to find somebody. They went 4 miles to I think it's the first buoy. Just before dark, they spotted this guy. He's got on a life jacket. He's in a low-riding kayak. He's got a t-shirt on, swimsuit, and he was hypothermic. He would, as Dennis told me, he would have never survived the night. Now, I didn't see anything in the news about this, but they were that guy was very, very glad to see them because he wasn't getting back to shore under his own power. But anyway, I can't imagine anybody going in the pass on a kayak.
Our guys do a lot of things that's never mentioned in the news.
I know.
And that's why there are unsung heroes.
They are. And my hat's off to these guys, what they do.
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, you mentioned talking about a new rule, and people need to be aware of this. I haven't seen this publicized.
But to me, this hasn't got out for whatever the reasons are.
Right.
I've heard some talk about it online, on Facebook, about a new Coast Guard rule. And so last night I looked on U.S. Coast Guard site, and sure enough, April 1st.
This past April 1st.
Past April 1st, 2021, a new law went into effect regarding kill switch attachment, or kill switch lanyard attachment, and the engine cutoff. It's an engine cutoff switch, obviously. Has to be attached to the person, the clothing, or the life jacket of the operator of a vessel less than 26 feet in length.
Wow.
With a 3 horsepower motor or larger in any navigable waters in the U.S. So it includes all our fresh water. If it's a small John boat, if it has less than 3 horsepower, he's good to go. If the vessel has the kill switch. installed.
Do we know if any other law enforcement agencies are enforcing
I have
this
no
at
idea.
this point?
I would imagine, like any other new law, it would be a soft approach and educational to start with.
Right.
But I wanted to bring to the attention that it is the law now that your kill switch lanyard should be attached to you, your life jacket, or your clothing
Wow.
while underway
Yeah.
on a plane or at not at idle.
Right. Kill switches are great inventions if people would wear their life jacket.
I'm bad about not wearing it.
But if people would wear their life jacket and then use a kill switch when you're operating a boat, you know, it would save a lot of lives.
Absolutely, because I've seen it firsthand
You dealt with it in your career
several times, and
dozens and dozens of times.
yeah, and if you come out of the boat, and the boat's going to keep going, and eventually the boat's going to torque to the direction that the engine is turning, and the boat's going to start doing circles, and you're going to be in the water in the middle of that circle. And a lot of people try to get over to the boat and they think they can get onto the side of it and catch it and get in. Well, they end up getting run over. A kill switch lanyard attached would have killed the engine right there. They could have swam back right over to the boat.
Hold on to the boat till
Hold
you
on
get
to the
help.
boat or get in or whatever. The life jacket would keep them afloat. So those two things alone are probably, to me, the most two important things that can save your life if you get ejected from a boat.
Right. Right.
Whether it be accident or just a fall over.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah.
I had an experience one time almost falling out, so
Yeah.
it's no fun.
I saw where our friend, and I say friend, has sold his sporting goods business.
And
Ronnie
I heard that the other day, and God bless Ronnie Groom for the many years that we've gotten to enjoy his store.
Isn't that the truth?
And I sure hope
Ronnie
that
and Jane.
he and Jane enjoy their retirement, and I hope the store continues to be a part of this community, and just kudos to Ronnie Groom.
My dad bought me a Browning from there in 1964 when he was in Panama City. We gave $159 for this gun, and I wouldn't take anything for it. Still have it.
We got to go.
I think we're about out of town. We will see you again next week or tomorrow.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.